Attraction doesn't start with pursuing, chasing, or convincing. It begins with you, your posture, your emotional discipline, and the way you carry yourself when you walk into a room. Most men approach a woman from a place of lack, as if she is the prize and he is trying to win something that's already slipping out of his hands. But when you operate like that, she feels it. She feels the neediness behind your smile. She feels the tension behind your words. And she senses instantly that you're there to gain approval, not to connect. Attraction dies the moment she feels you need her attention to feel valuable. But it begins the moment she sees you don't. A woman becomes intrigued by a man who can control his emotions before he even opens his mouth. When you're centered, grounded, and calm, you become the type of man who sends a subtle but powerful message. You don't seek validation, you don't chase, and you don't crumble in the presence of beauty. You let things unfold instead of trying to force them. That alone separates you from almost every other man she interacts with. Most men show up hoping for a reaction. You show up already whole. Self-control doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. It means not allowing momentary desires to override your standards. It means not losing your composure because of her body, her smile, or the possibility of rejection. You're not walking up to her to fill a void. You're approaching because you're curious, composed, and confident in who you already are. When you approach from that place, she feels the shift. Women are instinctively drawn to men who appear in control of themselves because emotional control signals strength, stability, and direction. Think about what happens when a man approaches from insecurity. His voice trembles slightly. His eyes search for validation. His mind overthinks every tiny detail, and all of that shows in his energy. She sees a man reacting to her presence rather than standing firmly in his own. A man without self-control makes her feel like he's asking for something. A man with self-control makes her feel like he has something worth discovering. This is why approaching a woman from a grounded state is the real source of attraction. When your breathing is slow, your body relaxed, and your focus steady, she senses a quiet confidence. You're not trying to be impressive, you simply are. You don't need her interest to validate your worth. You've already built that internally. And because you're not chasing her approval, she becomes curious about who you are underneath that calm exterior. That curiosity is the seed of attraction. Self-control is the soil. When you approach a woman from a position of strength, you remove the pressure from the interaction entirely. She doesn't feel like you're asking for something. She feels like she's being invited into your world, and that world is stable, intentional, and masculine. That is rare. That is what she notices first. And that is what makes her want to learn more about you, even if she wasn't attracted at the beginning. The moment you stop chasing her is the moment she starts wondering about you. The moment you stop needing her attention is the moment she starts paying more attention. Attraction isn't created by desperation. It's created by discipline. Real magnetism starts when you are in control of yourself, not the woman in front of you. And this is where everything begins. Most men approach a woman hoping for something in return. They want a smile, a number, a compliment, a sign that she likes them. And when you approach with that mindset, you instantly put her in the position of power. She becomes the judge and you become the applicant. But true attraction doesn't grow when you're looking for approval. It grows when you act with intention and release the need for an outcome. A woman feels it the moment you walk toward her, whether you're centered in your purpose or chasing validation. And she responds to that energy long before she responds to your words. Showing certainty in your intentions means you know what you want to say, you know why you're approaching, and you're not afraid to express it. There's no hesitation, no nervous apology, no over-explaining. You don't go in with lines or tactics. You go in with clarity. You're direct, honest, and collected. When you tell her, hey, I wanted to meet you, you're not fishing for a specific reaction. You're simply expressing truth. That is masculine energy at its core, clear, grounded, and uninterested in playing games. And here's the part most men overlook. Certainty doesn't mean aggression. It doesn't mean you push, chase, or corner her into responding. It means you present yourself fully while staying detached from whether she chooses to engage. That detachment is what makes you powerful. Women feel safest with the man who gives them freedom to choose, not the man who pressures them into liking him. When you can express your interest without needing her validation, it creates an environment where she can relax around you. She doesn't feel overwhelmed by your intention. Instead, she becomes curious about your calm confidence. You have to understand something important. A woman's interest often grows after the approach, not before it. Her first impression of you isn't even about your looks. It's about how you carry yourself emotionally. A man who approaches expecting something back puts emotional weight on her shoulders. She feels responsible for his feelings, and that kills attraction instantly. But a man who approaches with calm intention carries his own emotional weight. He doesn't need her reaction to feel secure, and that makes her look at him differently. This is why certainty without expectation is such a powerful combination. It communicates that you're a man who acts because he chooses to, not because he's begging for a response. You're not chasing a moment. You're creating one. You're not hoping for interest. You're seeing it if it exists. This shift in perspective is subtle, but it changes everything about how she experiences you. Instead of feeling like she's being pursued, she feels like she's being invited, and that difference determines whether she leans in or pulls away. Certainty is attractive because it shows leadership. It shows emotional stability. It shows that you've taken the time to develop yourself to the point where one interaction doesn't define your value. Women trust men who can stand firm in their identity. When you speak with steady tone, relaxed body language, and unwavering presence, she sees a man who knows who he is. That makes her feel safe. That makes her feel drawn in. That makes her wonder what's behind that confidence. And the truth is, the more secure you are, the more space you give her to participate. You're not trying to win her. You're giving her the opportunity to respond. And if she does, or if she doesn't, you remain the same grounded man you were before. That's the magnetic part. That's the energy that makes her look twice. That's the power of leading with clarity and letting go of expectation. This is how real attraction starts. Most men approach a woman like they're stepping onto a stage, performing a role they think will impress her. They exaggerate their confidence, force humor, speak too loudly, or try to appear more interesting than they actually are. And the truth is, women can feel when a man is performing. They can sense the tension behind his words, the pressure behind his smile, and the insecurity behind everything he says. Performance is a mask, and a woman instantly knows when the man in front of her isn't being real. That is why attraction fades the moment you try too hard. Trying to impress her communicates that you believe you're not enough unless she validates you. But curiosity, calm, present curiosity, communicates confidence and emotional stability. Approaching a woman with curiosity means you genuinely want to understand who she is, not collect her approval or attention. You're not talking to her to win her. You're talking to her to learn something. This immediately lowers the emotional pressure of the interaction. She doesn't feel like she's on a pedestal, and you don't feel like you're auditioning. Instead of performing, you're present. Instead of impressing, you're connecting. That shift alone creates a different energy, one that feels authentic, natural, and grounded. When you lead with curiosity, your attention isn't scattered or anxious. It's focused. You're not thinking about what she thinks of you. You're not rehearsing lines in your head. You're You're not calculating the perfect moment to say something clever. Instead, you're allowing the conversation to unfold organically. You're relaxed enough to notice her tone, her expression, her energy. And when a woman feels that you're truly paying attention, not because you want something from her, but because you're genuinely present, it creates an unexpected sense of comfort. Women are attracted to men who make them feel safe being themselves, and nothing makes a woman feel safer than a man who isn't trying to manipulate her emotions or control the outcome. When you stop performing and simply show up as yourself, she feels the authenticity, and authenticity is rare. Most men don't know how to be present because they approach from insecurity. They talk too fast, laugh too loud, or list their accomplishments like a resume. But curiosity removes the need for all of that. You're not trying to be more. You're not trying to be perfect. You're simply engaging with her as a person. Curiosity also shifts your energy from, I hope she likes me, to, I want to see if we actually connect. That subtle shift places you back in your masculine frame. You're evaluating, not chasing. You're grounded, not excited. You're calm, not reactive. A woman feels that instantly. She becomes more open, more playful, more interested because you're not putting her under pressure. You're giving her room to show her personality instead of forcing her into a script. And here's the secret: the moment she feels you aren't trying to impress her, she becomes more curious about you. Women are naturally drawn to mystery, not because you're hiding something, but because your presence is quiet, stable, and confident. When you're not trying to be impressive, you automatically become more intriguing. Curiosity creates a two-way pull. You're curious about her, and she becomes curious about why you're so calm and composed around her. This is how connection forms before attraction even takes place. This is how you shift from performing to truly being seen. And this is how you make her feel something real, something she didn't expect when you first walked up to her. And that's where everything begins. When you approach a woman, the first thing she pays attention to isn't your words, it isn't your outfit, your height, or your looks. It's your energy. It's how you enter the interaction, how you breathe, how your presence fills the space between you and her. And this is where most men fail. They approach with nervousness, with scattered emotions, with a shaky voice, and restless body language that reveals how uncomfortable they are inside. But when you speak with calm authority, when your tone is steady and your presence is grounded, something shifts in the atmosphere. She feels it immediately. She feels a sense of stability. She feels the weight of a man who knows who he is. And that is far more powerful than any perfect line you could ever deliver. A calm voice is not about being quiet. It's about being controlled. It's the difference between reacting to her beauty and responding from your center. When a man is grounded, he doesn't rush his words. He doesn't try to fill every silence. He doesn't stumble over sentences because he's scared of disapproval. His tone is slow, intentional, and confident, not because he's trying to sound impressive, but because he's genuinely comfortable in his own skin. Women pick up on that instantly. They don't hear the words first. They hear the confidence hidden inside the words. Your body language matters just as much. A relaxed posture, shoulders down, controlled breathing, these things communicate calm strength. You're not leaning toward her like you're desperate for her to like you. You're not fidgeting like you're waiting to be judged. You stand as if you have nothing to prove. That is the kind of presence that puts her at ease. Women gravitate toward men who make them feel safe emotionally, not men who are overwhelmed by their own nerves. Being grounded communicates emotional safety without you ever needing to say it. And safety isn't about being soft. It's about being steady. When a man is steady, his presence feels like a foundation she can relax around. She doesn't feel pressured. She doesn't feel tested. She doesn't feel like she needs to play a role. She feels like she can simply exist. That feeling is rare. Most men are too tense, too reactive, too eager to impress. But when you speak with calm authority, you become the opposite of that. You become a man whose presence commands respect without demanding it. This calm authority also communicates something deeper. You are not controlled by the outcome. You're not approaching her from fear. You're not speaking from insecurity. You're not trying to convince her to like you. You're evaluating the situation just as much as she is. And when she senses that balanced energy, she becomes more open. She becomes more curious. Your calmness becomes its own form of attraction. The truth is, tone and energy reveal more about you than any words ever will. A steady voice tells her you're not easily shaken. Controlled breathing tells her you're emotionally mature. Relaxed movements tell her you're not operating from insecurity or pressure. All of these small signals add up to one powerful message: you're a man who is in command of himself. Women are naturally drawn to that kind of presence because it shows leadership, confidence, and emotional intelligence, qualities that stand out even in the shortest interaction. And this doesn't mean you need to act cold or distant. Calm authority isn't about being emotionless, it's about being anchored. It's about showing that you're comfortable approaching her, comfortable being yourself, and comfortable with whatever happens next. That steadiness gives her space to respond, space to show interest, space to feel something toward you without feeling rushed or overwhelmed. A man who walks up with calm authority isn't trying to impress, he's simply inviting connection. And that quiet confidence is what makes her lean in instead of pull away. And that is where everything begins. Most men walk into an interaction with a woman believing they have only one job: impress her enough, so she chooses them. They try to look perfect, act perfect, speak perfectly, and hope that she approves of who they are. But that mindset destroys attraction because it places her on a pedestal and puts you in the position of a man who is trying to earn something. When you believe she is the only one with the power to choose, you automatically lower your value. But everything changes the moment you understand that attraction is a two-way street. You're not there just for her to evaluate you. You're there to evaluate her too. That shift in mindset communicates a level of self-respect that most men never display. Women are naturally drawn to men who have standards, not rigid rules or unrealistic expectations, but healthy boundaries, principles, and a clear understanding of what they will or won't accept. When your standards are internal, not reactive, they become a part of your presence. You don't need to announce them. You don't need to list them. You don't need to prove them. They show up in your actions, your tone, and the way you carry yourself. And when a woman feels that you value your time, your peace, and your direction in life, it instantly shifts the dynamic. You are no longer the man trying to qualify yourself. You are the man whose respect must be earned. This doesn't mean you act arrogant or dismissive. Real standards aren't loud, they're grounded. A man with standards listens, but he doesn't tolerate disrespect. He's warm but not needy. He's interested but not desperate. He's open but still discerning. And all of this is communicated quietly long before any explicit boundary is spoken. When you show that you're evaluating her, who she is, how she communicates, how she treats you, it creates a completely different atmosphere. She realizes she's interacting with a man who has options, a man who is self-assured, a man who doesn't derive his self-worth from her reaction. That kind of man naturally becomes more attractive because he is centered in his identity instead of shaping his behavior around her approval. Every woman feels the difference between a man who is just grateful for her attention and a man who knows he brings something valuable to the table. When she senses you're evaluating compatibility, not begging for chemistry, she steps into a softer, more authentic version of herself. She starts participating in the conversation. She starts asking questions. She starts investing energy. Why? Because she feels the challenge, not a pressure-filled challenge, but the quiet challenge of a man who is selective, a man who chooses with intention. This is also why standards built through your actions matter far more than standards spoken through your words. If you say you value respect, but you tolerate disrespect, your words mean nothing. If you say you're confident, but your body language shows insecurity, she sees the truth. If you say you want meaningful connection, but you chase validation, she feels the discrepancy. When your actions align with your identity, you become consistent, and consistency is one of the most attractive traits a man can have. Showing your standards doesn't push her away, it pulls her in. It creates a frame where she can express interest without feeling overwhelmed. It tells her she isn't the only one deciding if something should happen. You are also deciding, you are also choosing, and that equal energy builds genuine connection instead of one-sided pursuit. The moment she sees that you respect yourself, her level of respect for you rises automatically. And when respect rises, attraction follows. This is why showing your standards through calm, controlled behavior is far more compelling than any impressive story or surface-level charm. It sets the tone for real connection. It tells her you're a man worth knowing, not a man hoping to be liked. And that is where everything begins. Once you've made the initial approach, once you've shown confidence, calmness, and intention, there's one final piece most men completely overlook: the power of space. Not distance, not coldness, space. The room for her to breathe, think, feel, and respond. Most men ruin their chances not because they aren't confident, not because they aren't attractive, but because they don't give her the emotional freedom to participate. They suffocate the interaction with too much talking, too much effort, too much eagerness. They try to guide every second of the conversation, hoping that constant engagement will keep her interested. But real attraction doesn't work that way. Attraction grows when the energy between two people is balanced, not forced. When you approach a woman with the right mindset, you're not trying to convince her. You're allowing her to discover you. And discovery can't happen if you're doing all the work. You need to leave space. Space for her to ask a question, space for her to show curiosity, space for her energy to come forward naturally. Without that space, she never gets the chance to invest. And a woman only becomes attracted when she invests something: attention, curiosity, effort, emotion. If you're doing everything, she does nothing. And when she does nothing, she feels nothing. That's why the quiet moments matter. They give her the opportunity to meet you halfway. When you give her space after the initial approach, you're sending a powerful message. You're not trying to sell yourself. You're not begging for her interest. You're not afraid of silence. You're not dependent on her reaction. You're comfortable enough with yourself to let her come toward you if she wants to. That relaxed, unforced energy creates the mystery that women find so compelling. Not mystery in the sense of playing games or acting unavailable, but mystery in the sense of not giving everything away all at once. You're letting her discover who you are layer by layer instead of overwhelming her with everything at once. Mystery is not about hiding, it's about pacing. It's about giving her a sense of curiosity, a reason to lean forward and want to know more about you. When you speak with calmness and listen with presence, but also hold back just enough of your energy, she begins to wonder about your life, your intentions, your values. She begins to see you as someone who is not desperate for validation, but someone who lives a grounded, disciplined life. That curiosity is what turns a simple conversation into a meaningful interaction. And that meaningful interaction is what turns a moment into attraction. This space also gives you control over the emotional tone of the interaction. When you're not overly talkative or overly eager, You create a dynamic where your presence speaks louder than your words. She begins to sense your confidence, not because you say you're confident, but because you act like a man who doesn't need to dominate the moment. You give her the freedom to show interest in her own way. And when she does, it feels genuine, it feels real, it feels earned. Leaving space also communicates emotional maturity. It shows that you're not the type of man who chases endlessly. You're not trying to fill the silence out of fear. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're simply allowing the interaction to unfold at a natural rhythm. And when a woman feels that calm, grounded pacing, she becomes more comfortable around you. She relaxes. She opens up. She lets her guard down because she feels safe, not pressured. She feels seen, not pursued. She feels drawn in, not overwhelmed. A man who understands the value of space understands attraction at its deepest level. He knows that real connection requires balance. He knows that a woman needs to feel something, not because he forced it, but because he allowed it. And that allowance is what makes her lean in instead of step away. Giving her space isn't pulling back, it's pulling her forward. And that is where everything begins.